for TV, and we do drive your business. We are located at plot 42 Nile Avenue, Kampala, Uganda's capital, and we bring you live updates from the global financial markets, the regional as well as the local financial markets, giving you the opportunity to be able to invest in these markets and understand how you can benefit from them. My name is Anthony, and the show is proudly brought to you by Alltex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange licensed by the Capital Markets Authority to carry out the trade of securities in Uganda. They do have an exchange traded fund as well, where you can be able to invest in different stocks across East Africa. We're talking about stocks in Nairobi, stocks here in Uganda, and in Tanzania as well. Alltex East Africa is also now giving you a good chance to be able to participate in the bond market. Ever wondered how you can get started on your investment journey in the bond market? Alltex East Africa is giving you a chance to do just that. And this now is made easy by, of course, getting you a USSD code transaction where you can dial simply *292# and be able directly to get on the different markets across East Africa and be able to buy and sell the financial instruments of governments around East Africa with as little as 15,000 minimum for you to get started on the markets. The markets open at 15 minutes past hour of 8 and close at 15 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Now, let's get to continue with our deeper analysis on the Uganda Stock Exchange and get to see what some of the big participants or the big boys on the market had for us for the last day of trading last week, as we wound up this particular second week of November. Now, Bank of Baroda was the top mover for the day. Of course, reports indicated from the third quarter performances from the Capital Markets Authority bulletin that the Bank of Baroda was among the top participants in the markets or the trading in the third quarter of the year 2022. Well, we are seeing that the company also returned Friday with the biggest volume that was traded on this day on a single company. They did have over 253,900 shares that were transacted, costing them about 21.6 million shillings on the exchange. Now, the company currently has a share price of 85, and it is one of those very stable stocks that has tried to maintain a very steady price on the Uganda stock exchange. Currently, it has a total market capitalization of over 213 billion Ugandan shillings, and a total value, of course, of about 1.01% on the Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. Currently, they are the 12th most valuable on the Uganda Stock Exchange via market capitalization. Regarding the performance of the company since the beginning of the year, they did begin the year with 95.50 Ugandan shillings. And when I look at their graph here, that price declined significantly to 85 in the month of January, then went further down to 70, between 70 and 75 in the months of May and towards the month of April. And we did have also a downward movement in the month of July, and then they returned to 85 shillings. Basically, on average, they have had more times on the curve. If you draw their line, it's definitely at 85 shillings. That's where they have had their stability at the moment. Now, the company since beginning they are with about 95.50 Ugandan shillings has lost about, let's see, it has lost about a value of 11% of the stock price valuation, ranking them the 7th on the Uganda Stock Exchange in terms of the tradings rather in the loss of year to date at the moment. Bank of Baroda was some time back the biggest trader on the exchange in the quarter, especially during the second quarter, as well a little bit into the third quarter, maybe probably half of the third quarter. It was the biggest trader or the most traded on stock, but was pushed by Stanbic Umeme away from this position into the fourth position. Now currently the company is the fourth most traded on, coming behind Stanbic Umeme and MTN Uganda at the moment. And in the last 3 months, since the 22nd of August, they have had a volume of about 71,800 traded shares, valued at 384 million Ugandan shillings over the period. Now currently they have had a volume high of just 1 million shares that was achieved on October the 14th within the same period. Like I said, yesterday's trade ended with a gain, without any gain in price or loss, so they maintained the price of 85 shillings and their market capitalization was therefore maintained at exactly 213 billion Ugandan shillings on the stock exchange. Well, Bank of Baroda can still offer you very good activity, and it also does have a good dividend policy. This year, if I'm not mistaken, they did issue about 1.4 shillings per share worth of dividends. You can check out the history, but they were able to issue a dividend. Just like Stanbic, they did have a hold on the issuance of dividends in the years 2020 and 2021 by Bank of Uganda, of course, as a policy to kind of reserve capital for the banking or financial institutions in order to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic shocks, as well as other economic problems like inflation that were ravaging the nations during the 2020-2021 financial years. But later on, they were one of those companies that were able to give back to their shares, to their shareholders, a very good return. And over 26 billion Ugandan shillings was issued in dividends by the company this year. So it's one of the companies you can consider if you're looking for capital gain. Well, a little bit, because they don't have very fluctuating prices. They prefer a very reserved price of 85 shillings. But if you're looking at dividend, they do have a good dividend policy, and profitability also has been registered on the company in the most recent years. Well, that's it that we could get for you from the Uganda Stock Exchange. But well, at the end of the day, the market capitalization at the Uganda Stock Exchange was maintained at 21.1 trillion Ugandan shillings on the market. And also the local company index went down and the all-share index went up. That's it from the Uganda Stock Exchange. We do have, remember, 18 companies. So if you haven't had your company, probably there was no activity and there hasn't been activity, but we do still have quite a number. British American Tobacco Uganda at 15,000. We do have Cipla Quality Chemical Industries, the only pharmaceutical on the Uganda Stock Exchange, at 65.0 shillings. We do have DFCU Bank, we do have East African Breweries, we have KCB, as well as National Insurance Corporation, Uchumi Supermarkets, New Vision Printing and Publishing Company. You can name it, 18 of them, and they're out there to give you opportunity to trade. Now, for starters, if you want to buy shares, you must begin with an account. And this account is a Securities Central Depository account, or the SCD. Or rather, yes, SCD. And this SCD now is easy to open. You can use your mobile phone using your MTN line by simply dialing *165*57# and follow the prompts, and you will be able to open the account. Or you can go online at www.useeasyportal.com. Now, when you go to USE Easy Portal, they'll ask for your details. Your email address, your passport photo, your national identification number, and basic identification data, and then the account will be opened for you in 24 hours. And when you do open the account, there's a list of stockbrokers who trade on your behalf. As a trader, as a shareholder, you cannot access shares directly. You have to go through a licensed stockbroker, and we have 5 of them at the moment, including SBG Securities, including Keeper Technologies, including Dyer and Blair Investments, including also you have UAP Old Mutual, as well as Crested Capital. So you can check them out and get yourself started on your journey of investments. Otherwise, let's move on very quickly here to the Nairobi Stock Exchange and get to see what value the market had for the shareholders there in Kenya, and for us here who are the other participants in the markets. Now, yesterday the day ended with the index going up for the biggest stock exchange in East Africa, the Nairobi Stock Exchange. At the end of the day, we had 45 companies participate in trading, ending the day with 16 gainers and 19 losers. Williamson T. Kenya led the gainers with a 9.49% share price appreciation, closing at exactly 150.00 Kenyan shillings per share. There was also Nairobi Business Ventures gaining at 9.38% on the exchange, and Britam Holdings at a 4.69% gain. East African Portland Cement had a gain of about 4% on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. On the losing side, however, we did have Samia Africa, who came out last. Unfortunately, Samia has registered very poor performance in the recent few days, and this could get worrying for its shareholders. But like for most small caps, there is volatility, and especially when the economy is not good as it is right now, you will definitely see intense volatility on the on the small stocks, on the big stocks, but as well mainly on the small stocks. And Samia has been greatly affected, coming at the bottom of performers for quite some time now. Now, yesterday, rather on Friday, we had 9.94% that was shed off from the price of Samia Africa, closing at 2.4 Kenyan shillings per share. Kakuzi was also another loser there at a 7.14% loss. Ever Ready East Africa lost about 6.67%, and East African Cables lost about 6% of their price there at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. In terms of the biggest traders on the day, we had Safaricom come in as one of the biggest traders for the day, actually the biggest, at a 12.4 million shares volume. As well, we had Cooperative Bank of Kenya at 498,300 shares volume. You can imagine the biggest company trading about 12 million shares, and the next company trading just 400,000 shares. That's a very big difference, a huge difference there, which is not a good thing. We need to have at least a kind of balanced market where we have a shared market activity. But Safaricom has maintained its position as the top mover in the last day of trading for last week. Kengen or Ken General Group also had about 227,000 shares that were transacted, and East African Breweries had 193,500 shares that were recorded on the day. Regarding the performance of the Nairobi Stock Exchange All-Share Index, the index went up by 0.25 points, and this was a 0.19% that was added on the company's value for the last day of trading, and we had about 129.02 points, ending the all-share indexes trading there on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. For other indexes, remember we do have other indexes in Nairobi markets. We have the NSE 20 and the NSE 25, which track the top performers, that is the top 20 and top 25 companies respectively. And the NSE 20 also had an appreciation of 0.34%, while the NSE 25 outperformed these indexes by gaining about 0.39%. Well, it really looks like the NSE 25 really has good deals, because in most cases you will realize the markets move in favor of the NSE 25. I don't know why, but the top 25 companies seem to be doing quite well for the NSE 25 index on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Now, looking at the volumes here, as I said, we did have several companies participate, but let's look at Williamson Tea Company, which led the top gainers here on the market. Now, Williamson Tea Company of Kenya is a Kenyan-based company engaged in the cultivation and manufacture as well as the distribution of tea in Kenya. The company operates the Chongai Tea Farm, and this farm is in the area around the Great Rift Valley. That is Kapchora Tea Farm, located on the Nandi Hills, and the Kaimosi Farm placed in the North District of Nandi. And it is a Kenyan company. Of course, we have so many Kenyan tea companies, and this is one of those that are listed on the exchange, and we have several other tea companies on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Currently it trades under the ticker symbol WTK, standing for Williamson Tea Kenya, and has a total current value of about 2.63 billion Ugandan shillings, or rather Kenyan shillings, and this represents about 0.131% of the entire Nairobi market. And ranking about 31st in terms of value, it is still one of the most valuable tea companies that are listed on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. On the last day of trading, the company gained about 13.0 Kenyan shillings on its stock price, ending the day with 150.0 Kenyan shillings on the market, a 9.94 percentage increase in the markets there. They had a volume of about 1,000 shares and 150,000 Kenyan shillings in turnover that was registered. Looking at the company's history here, in the last day of trading, of course, they gained 9.5%. However, Williamson Tea Company began the year with 130.0 Kenyan shillings and have since then gained about 15.4% on the Nairobi Stock Exchange on their price valuation, ranking them the 7th in terms of year-to-date performance out of 65 companies. Now, that's a very good performance from especially a tea company that is listed on the biggest exchange in East Africa. Currently also, however, investors should take caution that the Williamson Tea Company has recently registered a slight decline in performance after it lost 10% in the last 4 weeks of its trading. However, the tea company is the 37th most traded on stock, and currently holds a value of about 273,000 shares within the last 3 months of trading, and about 126 deals that have been recorded in the period currently. And you're seeing on the 18th they had 1,000 shares, on 17th they had 100, 16th they had still about 6,100, and 100 shares on the 15th of November. A little bit of intense activity, if I could say, for at least a tea company, and this could be one of those companies that you could look out for on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to wind up this market here, and the data on the Nairobi Stock Exchange showed a 53% improvement in the volume and about 28% improvement in the turnover, but a 4% decline in the number of deals at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. There you have it. That is it from Nairobi. We shall just get to take a look at other stock exchanges around Africa. Johannesburg Stock Exchange had a 647.16 points increase in its J203, which is the benchmark of performance for the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. A slight improvement, of course, from the previous day. Nigeria also had an improvement in its all-share index at a 481.51 points increase as well. Now let's get to crossover to the United States before we wind up and get to see what really took place on the US markets for the last day of trading. Remember, the Federal Reserve was on with the increase or the hiking of the central bank rate, and it has been shaking things up. Well, on Friday, there was an advance of the stocks, and according to data from the US Stock Exchange, the US stocks churned ahead Friday as investors neared the end of a turbulent trading week marked with a mixed retail earnings and a chorus of hawkish Fed speak. And of course, the S&P 500, which tracks the top 500 American companies, also famously known as the Standard & Poor's, rose by 0.4%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average added about 180 points or 0.6%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ, which tracks mainly the performance of the technology companies, wavered around the flat line. It didn't have much deviation from what it had at the beginning of the day. The Treasury yields continued their ascent with the benchmark 10-year note back above 3.8% and the rate-sensitive 2-year yield inching up towards over 4.5%. Still, we're seeing still a competition rather between the yields on the 4-year, on the rather 10-year Treasury note, as well as against the stocks. And remember, the Federal Reserve Bank just a few days ago in the United States raised the interest rates to over 3.75 by 75 basis points, which was a very significant move there by the bank to curb inflation. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That's all we had for you this Monday. And keep tuned on Smart 24. More is yet to come. Remember, we drive your business. You can find us online at Smart 24 TV. And you can also find me at Anthony Sebale on Twitter. And we get to interact. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place.
Smart 24